Good evening and welcome back to OpenLine. This is a special segment of OpenLine that we do called Ask a Lawyer, where you, the viewer, get to call in and ask your questions. Any kind of legal question, anything that's on your mind. And we have Mr. Kevin Kennedy with us. Good
it's
to
always
have you
fun
here.
to be with you, Nick. You're a lot of fun to hit these questions and go. We love to help people.
Well, absolutely. Let's see here. Scott, you held throughout the break. I appreciate that. So you still there, Scott?
Yes, sir. I am. Thank you, guys.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Go ahead.
My question is my previous employment. I'm sure y'all hear this a lot, but nepotism may not be one of them.
Okay.
And what I had to do with was I was off that day, and everyone took a urinal sample, and I came back the next day, for a drug test. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to do it." I'm like, "Not a problem, not a problem." And they said, "By the way, you got to do a hair follicle." And I remember the day that I got hired in, and they shaved my chest. I had to have 150 hair follicles in order to pass a drug test. And I remember I looked like that guy off of 40-Year-Old Virgin. Very awkward. And so I kept thinking about that over and over again in my head. And so I hop in the SUV with the boss's wife when we're getting ready to go down there, and they told me it's a hair follicle test. I said, "Well, hang on. Let me talk to the manager on duty, the guy underneath the boss." And she didn't like the fact that I hopped out of the SUV. She's a very yes person, not a no person. And so by the time him and the manager, me and the manager are trying to figure this out, he's on the line with the doctor's office to find out where they can take the hair follicle test from. I was on agreement, so I was like, okay, they can take it from the leg. And by that time, I guess boss woman called boss man and told me to go home. If I wanted to worry about my job, come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it. And I did. I came back and I told them the situation, and they let me go.
Okay, well, you've got a dispute right there on the facts. Are they going to make an argument and say, you know what, your attitude is why we let you go? Okay, that creates a problem. Number two, are they going to say you refuse to be drug tested? And again, you would dispute that because you never said, I absolutely refuse that. So those are some gray areas on that. And then again, is it discrimination? Did they pick you out of the group and say, gave everybody else a urine analysis and they want a hair follicle from you? And then when they take 150 samples, that's outrageous. I don't hear that. And so they were trying to perhaps go too far, singling you out. Selective prosecution. What do you say, Nick?
I think that's exactly right. I've never heard of a hair follicle test that needed 150 samples like that.
Yes.
But again, it goes back to it's a right to work, and right to fire state. And if you don't make them happy and you don't comply, then they can get rid of you.
Yes.
The question becomes is, if you resign, I don't think you can get the unemployment versus being terminated, and
right.
That's a big difference for a lot of people, especially this time of year, being the holidays and the like. It's a great question, though, Scott. On line 3, we've got Howard. If Howard's still there. Good evening, Howard. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, Howard, go ahead.
All right. I got run over by a car here in Clarksville, and I was in the turning lane crossing the highway.
Yes.
And I got a witness that says that the car was driving down the opposite lane of traffic, and they realized they was in the opposite lane of traffic, and they switched over, and when they did, that's when they hit me. And they didn't stop immediately. They knocked me plumb out of my boots, and I had a white hat on and all. Knocked me plumb out of my boots, and they drove off, and then they come back, so they didn't know if they was there in person. Well, they're not paying my insurance. I'm not getting no settlement. They gave me a drug test, an alcohol test, and for my alcohol I was 0.2, which ain't legally drunk. My drugs was negative.
It sounds to me like you're going to have to pursue and get you a lawyer, and if you're the pedestrian under those circumstances, it sounds like the liability is on them. And so you're the classic case that all the lawyers love to hear about and say, hey, come see them. Because under that circumstance, it's a contingency fee. The lawyers charge 1/3. It doesn't cost you anything to go get the lawyer. It's one of the last vestiges of justice in our system where you don't have to put out money, and then the lawyer is under an obligation to try to get the most he can. He takes a third, you get 2/3. Kind of reminded me of what we said earlier. When you don't know where to turn to the Kennedy Law Firm.
That's exactly
I thought
right.
you almost said that. Go ahead.
Well, and I figure also the other thing too is that you're approachable. You know, I mean, if they call, I mean, you know, they're going to be dealing with you some as well.
And we love to help people in that, because if you didn't have a lawyer stand up, the year goes by, this gentleman is led on for whatever reason, and you know how much you get when you let it go by a year and not file? You get this, nothing. So a lawyer will make a big difference in your life.
I picked one up today where the adjuster was stringing someone along.
Oh, yes,
you know,
come on.
And the statute runs at the first of the year.
Yes.
So that's exactly.
And if you get too close to the statute, many lawyers say it's too close, I'm not going to get involved.
Well, this was a good case, so I took it. But,
Well, great, great.
So,
have a big Christmas.
all right, see, Ava on line 2. You there, Ava?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, Ava.
I'm afraid I know what the answer is.
Well, we'll see.
I have a really bad situation. It bothers me. It keeps me awake at night. I'm a disabled individual, and I've gone through some pretty hard times. I have all kind of diseases and whatnot. Now live in a small apartment that my daughter found for me, thank goodness, and she's helped me. She's the only one in my family that believes in me. But actually, what happened is, it happened, oh gosh, in August of 2014. I was living in Dixon, Tennessee, and I had a terrible landlord. And in May of that year, I had a massive heart attack and flatlined twice, and I ended up in Nashville in the Mid-State St. Thomas Hospital. And for 2 weeks, I didn't know who I was or where I was at, and I was a mess. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. Well, I finally got out after, I guess it was about June. And my sister, I don't know how she got by with this, but she put me in a nursing home, and it was the most horrible experience I've ever had. I will have a will done, but so this won't happen again.
Yeah.
But back to the landlord, he was the most disgusting person I've ever dealt with in my life, and I have rented a lot of places. I raised my daughter in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and I lived several places, and no one has ever treated me so badly. What had happened, when I got home from the hospital, my partner at the time that I'd been with for 10 years had gone manic. His daughter told me that he had bipolar disorder. He was like a monster. I didn't know who he was. Well, my family turned against me. They didn't want to have anything to do with me, so I had no place to go. I didn't know what I was going to do. Well, during the time when I was trying to get him to move, knowing how bad the situation was in that particular, it was a duplex, that we had to get out of there. Well, he thought that was just funny, so he pretended to be his own lawyer. And
You're talking about your landlord pretending to be his own lawyer.
no, my partner,
So who gave you the hardest time, the landlord or the partner?
both of them.
They double teamed you.
Yes. Anyway, behind my back, I didn't know this was going on, but my partner at the time was calling his wife and harassing her at work and saying all kinds of terrible things and threatening the landlord, saying that he has an attorney and he has told him not to speak or not to talk about the situation, which was a lie.
So what's the question when you get all the way through that? What's your number one question
So
on that?
smart. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But he was a mess. So they kept trying to kick us out. We hadn't missed the rent or anything. Actually, we were the best landlord we were the best tenants that he ever had, because we always paid our rent before it was due. I mean, he was good at that. He paid that bill, and I paid all the utilities and everything. That was our situation. Well, anyway, things got worse and worse, and he said, I think I'll just call the codes and let them come over here and see what a mess this place is. So we did that. And this guy was extremely nice, and he was mad. He came with his camera, and he took pictures of everything. There was standing water in the crawl space.
So did they evict you? Did they evict you out of that house?
They threw my things out on the ground and destroyed my property. Everything in that house I bought and paid for.
Well, you know, one of the things I think about, we had a case very similar that was a business, and the owners actually padlocked the door. Now, they don't have a right to do that. They have to give you 30 days notice in Tennessee, and then they have to bring a writ of possession to try to get possession of it. You go to court, there's a judgment entered, and you got 10 days to appeal that if you choose to. But once they get possession, they're supposed to gather up all your things and protect those things for a period of time. And if it's worth anything, sell it, and that goes to the old rent. You usually have 48 hours to get your stuff after possession, and if you didn't, well, it's gone. So that's why you need a lawyer. At least find out what the law is, and that'll help protect your rights. Laches is a old legal maxim. It means don't sit on your rights, because you will be sad, you will be disappointed, and that's just the way it goes. You heard that old saying, oh, I'm oh so sad, it's too bad. Well, that's kind of, if you sit on your rights, that's what's going to happen to us.
That's exactly right. So Gwen, Beth, Tommy, and Anthony, if you guys will stay holding, we'll get to your calls as soon as we get back. We're taking your phone calls here on Open Line. The number's at the bottom of the screen, 737+, 737-7587. We'll be right back.